Welcome to Search for Signs. My name is Gary Willing. If this information interests you, please press the like and subscribe button and press the bell for notifications. Hope you're doing well today. It is the 24th of May, and if you're living here in the United States, you know as well as I do that it's Memorial Day weekend, the beginning of the unofficial day of summer. And it's starting to heat up here in Atlanta, so that's always nice. Now, just as a reminder, I don't know if you know this or not, but this image right here, evidently Maitreya drew this whimsical drawing, which looks kind of like me because he's bald. But he drew it on a piece of paper and he put it on the lost loved ones board right after the tsunami in Indonesia. And in whatever language it is, it looks like either Chinese or Japanese or something like that. It says, Maitreya, be at peace and remember to pray. So during these difficult times, remember to be at peace and remember to pray. So hopefully that helps. Which, if leads me to my first comment to talk about is from Rod, actually, where he says, all is well, all will be well. That's right, Rod. Now, if you feel like you want to add to this and ask a question or something like this, please feel free to post that question as a comment, and I'll do my best to answer it. Please refrain from asking me my opinion about somebody else, and that would be great. You can also email me directly at searchforsigns@mail.com. Now, of course, we have a bunch of different comments and questions to go through today, and I want to kind of get right into it. Now, the next comment, Tracy Smith wrote, who self? Well, she's commenting the fact that in my last video, somebody had said that referred to Maitreya as an itself, and I said who self. And it's funny, I wish I had actually had a higher purpose of why I said it, but it was just kind of came out when I went back and listened to it. I was like, well, that sounds kind of funny. But, Maitreya does always says to ask yourself, who am I? So it's not totally off base. Next comment, Tao Zen Chi. It's all EMC, E equals MC squared anyways. That's true. Everything is energy, isn't it? And that little equation that Einstein came with, brought forth to the world was actually intuited by him. He wasn't really a mathematician in the ways of what we would consider a mathematician to be, but it was quite an extraordinary discovery. But apparently that's the mantra that we will use to do everything from create things physically to moving things with our mind. This is how the Egyptians moved those heavy rocks into position for the pyramids and so forth, and it's just a matter of knowing that ancient mantra. It's actually a mantram. But the other thing that I was thinking about, and I don't know if this is true or not, but they always say thought is energy, right? Or energy follows thought, right? So if thought is energy, and energy equals mass times the speed of light squared, then technically our thoughts can move at the speed of light squared, which is pretty darn fast. Make you a great wide receiver in the NFL, that's for sure. All right. Let's see. Next one. And I had to kind of cut the comment in two portions because the middle portion doesn't really pertain to much. It's from Zen. Interesting video on YouTube about some of these crosses of light coming from types of glass used in windows. It's replicable in a lab with light on a specific angle. And then it went on to say, don't get me wrong, I'm all for miracles. It's just some of what we think of as miracles are actually explainable with the right science. Well, truth be told, actually, all these miracle signs can be explained with the right science because that's what these masters are using. They're using science behind it. It just seems miraculous to us because we're not used to seeing stuff like that. Now, I get what you're saying. I know that's not what you're trying to point out, but as with everything, scientists can always prove or disprove whatever they want to prove, and that's because they're used to seeing life through a microscope. They don't see the broad spectrum of things, and I'm not taking anything away from their science because they do bring to light a lot of truth that wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for that type of thinking, right? If that makes any sense. But just like looking at crop circles, for instance, right? Well, there's always, you can go on YouTube and look at, videos of authentic crop circles that have this symmetry and they almost look 3D in their dimensions and stuff like that. And so then you look at some yokel, who's got a board and a string and just makes this little circle and goes, oh, see, I made a crop circle. See, they're all fake, And they also don't take into account that authentic crop circles, there are no, footprints to speak of. The other thing that really does answer the question of why are the UFOs and those quote unquote aliens, are they here in a nefarious way? That none of the authentic crop circles are any of the crops harmed. They're actually laid over gently. And they do it very quickly, but they're laid over gently. When people do it, earthlings, I guess, try to duplicate a crop circle using nothing but string and board and all that kind of stuff. The stalks of wheat or corn are invariably bent or broken. And so they don't take that into account, that there is a distinction between the two, if that makes any sense. And so I'd have to see this video to see what you're talking about. The other thing is, I know the crosses of light that I saw in Copper Ridge Baptist Church weren't always there, and they just appeared. So that church had been there for decades, and all of a sudden on one night they turned, when the parking lot light came on, everyone in the church saw these huge crosses in there, which were manifested by Maitreya. And the other thing is that the healing qualities that happened from people who even didn't believe that they were miracles had anything from being cured from cancer, AIDS, all sorts of diseases, to even things like drug addictions. And I know when I talked to Joe Bullard, who was the reverend of Copper Ridge Baptist Church, that he had a file of hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands of cases of people who claimed to have been cured from whatever they had based on seeing those crosses. So I doubt whatever cross they duplicated in the lab has a healing quality to it as well. And the other thing too I noticed is that the sad ending of that story about Copper Ridge Baptist Church, all the panes of glass were destroyed except for one, and Joe Bullard gave it to the Atlanta group here. So we have a pane of glass that we can display when we give talks or whatever like that. Well, this one time I wanted to, we had thought about a great way of displaying it to kind of get this information out there, was to go to a local New Age bookstore and have it on display there. And when I took it there, the crosses could not appear. No matter what they did, no matter how much light they shined on it, it didn't work. And when I took it away and we went back to the person's house who stored the light, we tried. I was like, something's wrong with this thing. So we turned on the pane of glass. I turned on the light and shined it right above, right in front of the pane. We put the pane of glass in front of the light, and the cross of light was there. And this happened actually in El Monte, California, when they first appeared. They actually appeared in people's homes out of the blue, and people wanted to take it into the Catholic Church for the people in the church to appreciate, and it didn't work, And then so when Benjamin Creme was asked about it, he said it was so everybody could see it, not just the people in the church. Now, the reason why it didn't show up at the New Age bookstore, I don't know. Apparently they didn't want that cross of light in that New Age bookstore, I guess, but it was kind of weird. So hopefully this helps. But, I know that, the other thing was, a few years back, actually 11 years ago, in July, when I was on the way to see my brother in Charlotte, I quietly asked Maitreya if he could make a UFO appear for my family. And I don't know what made me think that, but because I don't normally go around making those kind of requests on anybody, let alone a master, but I did. And then I immediately said, don't worry about it, forget about it. I don't know why I even said it. Well, he did make it appear. And my neighbor was the one that saw it, not me. And, well, I saw it eventually, but he was the one that saw it first. And not my neighbor, my brother's neighbor, excuse me. And looked up and right in front of the kids, go, what the beep is that? Now, my brother, who is an engineer, who doesn't believe any of this information, if I were to ever tell him this, he would not believe any of it, because it's all, quote unquote, explainable by science, is what he would say, right? Looked up at a UFO that was clearly a UFO. Other people that were around thought the same thing that I did. That's a UFO. It looked like a flame, but it was as red as a stoplight, is how red it was. And there was a little white circle on the bottom of it, but it looked like the shape of a flame. And it was going very slow, deliberate. It wasn't shooting all over the place like a firework would do. It just went really slow from one part of the horizon to the other. And my brother looked up at it. And right when my nephew goes, "Dad, that's a UFO." And my brother goes, "Nah, that's just a plane with its light out." And went right back to working on the little dinky little fireworks that we had going in their driveway, right? And then my nephew looked and went, "Oh, yeah, that's just a plane." I mean, the closest explanation, if you wanted to say, it looked like a plane that was totally on fire, you know, but no, it was definitely a UFO, because it went around the side of the building. It disappeared for me and whoop, it went away. But some people don't see stuff, so it all depends on what you see. Maitreya would say, those who search for signs will find them. So if you look for it, you can find these kind of signs, like the crosses of light, those kind of the weeping icons, the Hindu miracle, crop circles, those kind of things. But there's always somebody that's going to, "Oh, that's nothing." Well, explain to me why, when people who didn't believe in these crosses of light, when they saw them at Copper Ridge Baptist Church, were being healed, even if they didn't believe it. So, I don't know. Riddle me that. I'm just kidding. But it is, as you're very right in saying, it's all explainable by the right science. It's just these masters have the science to be able to create these things. And eventually we'll all be able to. But anyway, hope this helps. Now, the next question, there was two of them. And unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to answer them in the last videos. One was from Peter Miller. Or actually, they're both from Peter Miller. What will the countries which don't have an excess of anything share? Well, according to the masters, every single country has at least one thing to share. Now, they might need also help in order to get their country up to a level where they'll have even more excesses to share. It kind of what happened after, I think, World War II, probably, right? Europe was leveled, didn't have a lot to offer anybody. And then when George Marshall, the Secretary of State, came up with the Marshall Plan, which is what these masters are talking about in terms of sharing to create peace, but on a global scale, the United States put together an aid package, but it wasn't just money, just throwing money at the issue. They actually gave them building products, gave them whatever they needed to get their countries up and running, whether it was electrical wire to concrete for roads, to build bridges, whatever it is, housing materials, that kind of stuff. And they gave it to them freely, and they used it, and they helped build their economies up. So where in just a few years, you couldn't even tell that World War II really did the damage that it did, right? And then once they were able to do what they could do, they actually gave some of that excess back to the United States in payment for what they initially gave. So that could be kind of what happens with some of these really, really tiny countries and very poor countries and so forth like that, that don't have as much excess as, let's say, Russia or China or the United States, right? Or Australia or something. The other thing is, and I don't know if this is true or not, but the other thing is, countries like Brazil might have an intangible resource that they can offer the world in exchange for something. Like, I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me, how much oxygen the rainforests in Brazil, the Amazon rainforests, rainforests provide the world, right? But they of course are chopping it down at an alarming rate in order to keep up with all these other countries, with the globalization and commercialization and capitalization all over the world. So they're cutting down these trees that we all need to breathe, right, in order to compete. Well, if they didn't have to compete, they might be able to forego cutting down such large amounts of forests in exchange for those things that they need to keep their economy going. So that could be something else that a country could have, that they could exchange for something else, if that makes any sense. It's kind of like a bartering system on a global level. Now, the next question, which is going to lead me to the master's article that I'm going to read at the end of this video, but Peter Miller also asked, what does Maitreya think about abortion and gay marriage? Now, you'd have to ask Maitreya that question, since you said, what does he think about it? Okay, but I am going to read what the masters would say about abortion is they look at it not black and white. So there's some instances where it might be the lesser of two evils, like let's say incest or rape, right? But there's other, parts to abortion that it is the ending of a life, so there is a karmic debt to be repaid at some level, right? From whoever decides to have the abortion or whatever like that, right? But in the end, the unborn child will just come back in another life. It's not the ending of that life, it's just the unfortunate abortion of an unborn child, right? Now, so they look on it probably more in terms of black and white, but you'd have to ask Maitreya that part. But now, in terms of gay marriage, I am going to read an article that Benjamin Creme's master wrote about gay marriage in terms of raising children. Okay, so I don't know if they necessarily would look on, a gay couple living together and maybe being married, in the same way, but I know when I read this for the first time, I disagreed with what Benjamin Creme's master said. Didn't mean I threw the whole thing out and said, hogwash. I'm not gonna take anything he says ever as again, right? He's the devil. He's this, like so many people do. I just disagreed with this one part. Now, over the years since I've read it again, I've had to kind of reconsider it because of the fact that these masters look farther into the future than I can, so they might be seeing the problem with homosexuals trying to raise children that I can't see. So does that make sense? But he's not talking about gay marriage per se. He's talking about gay marriage families with the head of the families, is homosexual, either men or homosexual women. So this is where it comes from. Hopefully this helps answer your question, Peter. And this article is entitled The Family. And as always, if these articles pique your interest, definitely seek out the book A Master Speaks on Amazon, either Volume 1 or Volume 2. It'd be a lot better for you just to read it yourself than to have me read it to you. But anyway, and it was published in October of 2002. All right, the family unit is the basis of all social life. Its importance cannot be overemphasized. Today, this preeminence is being eroded by neglect, experiment, and misunderstanding of the essential needs of children. All children need a stable background in which to grow, and the exemplars of that process, a mother and father. Not all parents provide that stability or offer worthy examples is sadly all too true. And many factors are involved in this unfortunate condition: lack of education, poverty, inadequate housing, illness, and irresponsible and feckless adults, immature and unfit for the rigors of family life. Let it also be said that millions in every country, poverty-stricken and deprived of every amenity, strive valiantly and mostly succeed against all the odds to hold their families together and provide a stable and loving example to their young. They are the unsung heroes of the race who, through tenacity of purpose and endless self-sacrifice, represent the best that humanity can show. The new education must address this fundamental problem and institute the training and requirements for family life. It is odd, is it not, that the most basic aspect of social life should receive such scant attention and be left to the vagaries of chance to such a large extent. In most countries, the right to drive a car is regulated and controlled by age and tests more or less severe. Doctors and nurses, pilots and drivers of trains, all of them may carry out their useful service only after due training and careful preparation, and rightly so. Yet millions of young people are allowed to enter this field of service, the most difficult in the world, for the most part devoid of training of any kind. The simple biological urge to reproduce and the domination of women's quote-unquote time clock, unquote, are considered sufficient to grant the right to multiply and add to a congested world. The young couples commence the subtle and difficult art of upbringing and nurturing of souls in incarnation with little more than their conditioning to guide them. That conditioning they duly pass to their children, and so the follies and ignorance perpetuate. Thus the need for the light of a new approach to this sacred service. Today, there is an added and growing twist to the problem. Mounting sexual experimentation in the field of family life is leading to a distortion and misunderstanding of the true nature of the parent-child relation. The child is a soul in a family of souls. This provides the family unit with the opportunities for resolving karma developed over many incarnations together in varying relationships. Hierarchy is not the enemy of homosexuals, but the growing demand of homosexual men and women for the right to raise children is mistaken and unhelpful to the child. All people of whatever sexual persuasion should think deeply about the nature and purpose of incarnation, the nurturing of souls who need a mother and a father to provide the examples, guidance, and karmic opportunity to grow and evolve according to the plan. If, for whatever reason, people feel inadequate to the task, a wise self-sacrifice for this life may be the wisest course. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.